All right, and our next interview will be with myself and Professor Pape, and so enjoy.
Well, as I said, it was part of a prospective randomized trial where we wanted to get further intraoperative information, perioperative information on patients that underwent femoral nailing. And the background is that there was a group, there were multiple groups involved in this, so most of them coming from Germany, and they looked at the effects of fat embolization during reaming. There was a controversy going on, so then it was interleukin 6 and 8 were new parameters, and so we figured out that we have to, at the same time, evaluate if these parameters are making sense. And everybody was speaking about clinical effects only. And we felt that it's like a puzzle. It has multiple small pieces. And that's why we felt that maybe subclinical parameters, just like interleukins, would make sense to measure. No, I think among, if you look at the three parameters, IL-1 was probably was the weakest one in terms of prediction. And so, well, but it was, I think, IL-6 and IL-8 were useful in our understanding of surgery being a possible insight to the whole picture. So if you have a patient with a very severe chest injury, badly resuscitated, that is rushed to the operating room too quickly, and you do surgery too long, with this whole combination, you can still see that these patients, if then you create a rise of interleukin, which is a subclinical parameter, then maybe it does affect the whole outcome. And so yeah, it's just useful for our understanding nowadays. Well, the idea at that stage was that you have an initial inflammatory peak that normalizes. And if you look at some clinical parameters, you make rounds on the ICU, and day 1, 2, maybe day 3, oftentimes the patients have a positive fluid balance, and they have a drop in coagulation parameters such as platelets. And so we try to use all these easy parameters. And I believe another factor that played a role was the degree of chest injury, which in the 80s and 90s was tremendous. Many people came with severe lung contusions. All these situations have improved quite a bit. I believe that the ventilators have become better. And so what used to be a very high peak initially, followed by the state of dysergy, I think it's still existing, but we don't see so much late organ failure anymore. I think we even tried to prove it in 2018. It was published in Journal of Trauma. We tried to prove that the amount of ARDS has improved, but we couldn't find it enough evidence in the literature. But certainly, if you look at some of the ICU papers, you can see that some of the dysergy, it's not as bad as it used to be anymore. That's why we also, I think it has influenced our surgical strategy in multiple ways. We have found in another publication that IL-6 is slightly more sensitive in general, whereas IL-8 would be better for patients with a severe chest injury. And at some stage, I used daily measurements Now we rely on other factors as well. I think coagulation is very important. I think Dr. Verlier has shown that lactate plays a role. And after her, there was another few publications by a group, Desman, from, I think they're from Baltimore, and they looked at serial lactate values, which make a lot of sense. And so if a patient is not able to clear the lactate, if the patient doesn't improve his coagulopathy that exists early on, then we know we have a problem. And I think another very important factor that is underestimated many times is the degree of soft tissue injury of the extremities in general, or if you have a vascular lesion and you have a reperfusion injury. That, to my mind, is tremendously underestimated.
Okay.
So I think we moved away a little bit from looking at isolated parameters. We look at multiple parameters. We try to cover, coagulation, acid-base changes, the degree of soft tissue injuries, and you can do. There are four or five different scores in the literature. There's a polytrauma grading scale. There's early appropriate care, and I personally, yes, I have lactate in my. It is there, but it's not the only parameter. I look at pulmonary function. I look at coagulopathy, and I also want to see if the patient is physiologically not stable. So my take-home message for residents would be, if you look at one parameter only, the IL-6, it is only a piece of the puzzle. Well, thanks for inviting me, and it's always a pleasure to speak about this topic. I thank the AO for giving us the opportunity.